Hello and welcome to the third part of our Zero to Hero series, the signatures. In my signatures, I always use two different threads. Here you can see a thin one and a thicker one. That's just a personal preference of mine. You don't have to do it this way, but I always sew my signatures together first with the thin thread, and then later I sew them into the cover using the thicker thread. It just gives everything a bit more stability. As you just saw, I placed all the pages correctly inside each other and positioned them in the middle. Now I've opened the signature to the center and I'm poking through with the needle. And you can see I always hold one side up so I can see where the needle comes through on the other side. I've tried piercing through all the pages at once before, but too many times a page slipped and then I wasn't piercing exactly through the fold anymore, and I really don't like that. So as you saw, the first stitch goes from the inside to the outside. Then I stitched from the inside again because from there you can see the fold much more clearly, but for the second stitch you actually have to go from the outside back in, and then for the third stitch you go from the inside to the outside again. And you can see that because of this technique, piecing each page individually as I go, I always come out exactly in the center of the fold. Now we need to sew back the other direction. That means we go from the outside to the inside again. Basically, wherever your needle comes out, that's exactly where it needs to go back in the next hole. And here at the end, I go under the sewn thread once and then through the loop, and then I pull it tight, and I do that a few times. After that, I pull the needle back to the other side and do the exact same thing. I tie 2 or 3 knots again, and then I also knot the 2 loose thread ends together twice to make sure everything is really secure. And now you can see it. This is our first signature. That's how quickly it's actually sewn together. Even though I pierce each individual page separately, it still goes fairly fast. And now we'll repeat this for all the signatures we have. Next, we move on to the cover. We still need to get these signatures sewn into the journal. I'm using a hidden spine for this, meaning the sewing won't be visible from the outside. So we need an additional piece onto which we can sew the signatures, and that extra piece will be later glued into the cover itself. In my case, this extra piece is a strip of lace that I cut to the right size. Later, once the signatures are sewn into it, this piece will be attached to the inside cover. Here you can see the spine has a width of 4 centimeters, and on these 4 centimeters I want to place all 3 signatures. And I always leave a little space on the left and on the right of the spine. That means here it fits really well. One signatures can go on the center of the first centimeter, the second one at the second, and the third one at the third. And that still leaves 1 centimeter of space on both the left and the right side of the spine. So I've marked the lace strip at the correct size and length. And for this step, as I mentioned earlier, I'm using the thick thread. And because we have sewn the signatures together already, now they hold together pretty well. Nothing shifts anymore, and you can handle them without worrying that anything will slide out of place. So now we place the first signature at the first marked line and poke through at the exact height of the holes we already made while sewing the signatures together. You just need to pay attention and line everything up. Push the needle through the lace. You can see here the hole is right there, and that's exactly where I'm going through. So you're using the pre-punched holes from before. And sometimes the needle might come out a little too early or in the wrong spot. If this happens, just reposition it and pull it through again. And then we go from the inside to the outside again. You can see the pencil line here, and that's where I place the needle. Make sure the needle stays straight and pull it through. And if it gets stuck, just use some pliers. Otherwise, you'll hurt your fingers and it's really uncomfortable. As I said, the holes are already pre-punched, so you can simply guide the needle through them again. And then same procedure, tie a knot, and I go under the sewn thread once and then through the loop and pull it tight. And you can see here I'm using the pliers again because the more thread there is between the layers, the tighter the space becomes, and sometimes it just gets stuck. Then I tighten the thread so nothing is loose, tie another knot, and finally knot the 2 thread ends together as well. So this is how you attach your signatures onto your hidden spine material. And now you repeat the same process with the remaining 2 signatures. Make sure they're facing the right way and in the correct order. And this is what it looks like. They're all attached. Now you've sewn your signatures onto your hidden spine. Next, you need to attach this hidden spine to your actual book spine. And I simply do that with glue. This is what it looks like. Just brush glue on generously and stick it on. And so for your hidden spine, you can basically use anything that works, a piece of cardboard or fabric. It doesn't even have to be lace. Plain fabric is actually even easier. With lace, because of all these little holes, sometimes you might push the needle through the wrong hole and end up pulling the lace out of shape. You can see it a bit in the upper left corner where it created some folds. There you can see it right here. It didn't bother me, but it's just something to keep in mind. And then you just let everything dry, and that's really all there is to do. And with that, you have your hidden spine. And you can also sew your signatures directly onto the book spine from the beginning, and then afterwards place that sewn spine onto a piece of fabric together with the two book covers on the left and right, and then simply wrap the fabric around everything. That method is a bit easier. The downside, however, is that you need to decorate the inside spine beforehand, otherwise you'll end up with a blank spine on the inside of your journal, which doesn't look as nice. Of course, you can also create a visible binding if you have a particularly beautiful thread, or if you want to decorate the stitching. In that case, you simply sew the signatures directly onto the book spine and glue your cover pieces together, but you leave the spine visible. That's also an option. You can also use elastic bands, tie them to the spine, and then just slide your signatures underneath the elastics. That way you don't have to sew it all. There are so many different ways to bind signatures, and this was just one of them. And as you can see, I didn't measure very much or use a template to make sure all the holes were perfectly aligned, because once everything is sewn in, you won't see any of that anyway. Let me reveal the biggest secret: you won't see it. All you see in the end is where your thread starts and ends in the middle of each signature. But because you can't lay all the signatures open side by side at the same time anymore, you'll never be able to tell whether the stitch length inside each signature are identical or not. So I really don't put too much effort into that part. I just poke 3 or 4 holes, depending on how big the signature is, and connect them. The only thing you need to watch out for if you're making a hidden spine is that the hole spacing on your fabric or whatever material you're using matches the spacing of the holes in your signatures. But I already showed you how to do that. Just place your needle exactly at the pre-punched hole of the signature and slide it straight down. That's all there is to do. It's not complicated or time consuming. You can absolutely do this, and I'm believing in you. So that's it. That was our Zero to Hero series. The only thing missing now is the flip through. You've created an entire journal with me step by step, and I've already fully decorated the finished piece. Next week, you'll see how the final result looks. Until then, all the best, and I'm looking forward to it. Bye bye.